is your host, Hollie, and it's time for a little teaser talk.
Rocklahoma. America's biggest Labor Day party is back with the loudest lineup yet. This August 30th through September 1st in Pryor, Oklahoma, with, for the first time ever, Avenged Sevenfold, Slipknot, Disturbed, Evanescence, plus A Day to Remember, Lamb of God, and many more. Passes and camping on sale now at rocklahoma.com, starting at $10 down.
Happy Teaser Talk Tuesday, everyone. You guys know the drill. Be prepared to be entertained for the next 20 minutes or so. We'll see how it goes. Today, I have the lead singer of Moon Fever, Triston, on the show. What is going on?
What's going on? How are you?
I am fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing amazing. It's beautiful today where I'm at, so couldn't be better. We normally get rain over in Washington, so it's nice.
You know, I'm definitely not jealous of where you live. I mean, I've been to Seattle before, and I think it's fabulous, and I think it's awesome to visit. But I am such an emo kid. I feel like I would be depressed 24/7 with like all the rain and sadness.
It makes for it's the best kind of weather when you want to write the kind of music that we write. So
yeah, well, I was gonna say too. I'm sure like it helps you stay like, I don't want to say like angry rock and roll, but I'm gonna say angry rock and roll, like, you know.
No, I mean, you definitely get used to it though too. I mean, like, because for me, I kind of look forward. It calms me. It's calming when the clouds roll, it starts raining. You hunker down inside. You don't feel guilty for not having to be somewhere, do something when it's sunny. So
oh, that makes sense. I mean, like thunderstorms are like that to me. So
no, we were actually just in Louisiana not too long ago, and there's this crazy like rainstorm and wind and thunder and lightning. Nothing like I had ever experienced before. So I'm tripping about it. I'm just like, oh my God. And people had heard that we're from Seattle. They're like, what? It's just rain. Don't you experience rain? I'm like, yeah, but nothing like this. I mean, it was sideways. It was like, crazy.
There are like lightning bolts coming out of the sky at everyone. What is this?
Yeah, it's just consistent over here. Like it does rain consistently, but it's not anything crazy.
Yeah, I was at the So What Festival doing media coverage a couple weeks ago, and that's in Dallas, or it was Fort Worth, Texas. Oh, cool. And unfortunately, the second half of the last day, weather, of course, came in and said nope, and they had to do an evacuation, and people were like freaking out. But I'm like, I'm just from this area, so I'm like, it's just like thunderstorms. Like they just legally they have to evacuate it. So in case of, you know, the lightning hits like the stage, no one's gonna die. Everyone is like tornadoes. I'm like, you guys are wild. Everyone needs to calm down.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah, correct. Awesome. Well, let's just get into it. I love the conversation flow already going. So this is going to be an awesome, easy conversation. So let's
entertaining 20 minutes.
In 20 minutes. Well, 18 minutes and 30 seconds left. I'm joking. But with that being said, you know, obviously listeners have just found out you guys are from Seattle. And I'm just curious, what's your story? What's Moon Fever's story? I just love a good origin story, and then how you guys got to where you're at today.
For sure. I started out as I feel like every musician almost starts out as just a club musician, a local guy grinding it out. My dad was really prevalent in the Seattle scene here. He was in this band called Second Coming that was with Capitol Records for a second in the late 90s. So, you know, I had something to look up to at a really young age at what I wanted to do and be like, I find myself lucky because it takes a lot of people a long time to figure out what they want to do. But for me, it was just like, you know, you see him on stage one time, and it's like, yep, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. So I got in my first band at 19, and just kind of progressed from there. You know, classic story. First band wasn't the greatest.
Wasn't the band, right?
No, it wasn't the band. You know, I was finding my footing for sure. And then, funny story for a second. So my dad was in this band in Seattle called Bruiser Brody, and it was with our local radio guy here, Steve Miggs from 99.9 KSW. And my dad got polyps on his throat, and he had to have surgery, and they had a couple shows lined up. So he asked me if I could do them because our voices are very similar.
No way. How cool.
It was very good. It was a very cool opportunity for me too, because Stephen Perkins from Jane's Addiction was was playing there that night because it was Steve's birthday bash. So, and I'm a huge Jane's Addiction.
Sorry, Dad, not sorry.
Yeah, I love Jane's Addiction. So I was like, absolutely. And so we went and played, and it was awesome. It was a great show. I dressed up like my dad. I paid tribute to him and stuff. And I did the show at the end. It was cool. And then from there, I found my next band, Hellbot, and we had a great run for a couple years. Love those boys to death. Great music. And then unfortunately, our band imploded after a really good show that we had here at the Showbox. And I got the call from Moon Fever. And that's kind of all she wrote. It's been a wild ride since. I was about 2 years ago, almost to the day, actually. We're coming up in the same time I joined the band 2 years ago.
Oh my gosh. Well, happy early birthday to the band.
Yeah, right. Thank you. Yeah, so it's been crazy since then. I've had a wild career, but it's the connection that I made with these guys in the band was so quick. It was weird almost.
Yeah, and we'll definitely get into it later, but you could definitely sense that, like, when you guys are on stage and stuff, it's nothing that's like scripted, because I hate to say this, but there's sometimes you see live bands and you're like, you say that at every freaking city. Every city's the best. You know what I mean? Like, you could just tell it's so scripted. And I understand for logistic purposes to some extent it needs to be, but also it's like the authenticity, like seeing you guys live, it is definitely there, and people can feel that for sure, at least from the band's perspective.
Thank you. I'm glad that comes off that way too, because it's definitely that way, and we fuck around with each other a lot on stage, but we're having fun. You know, and yes, this is a job, but we wanted to do this when we were little boys, dude. So we're living out that little boy dream on stage, and that never gets old. So it's cool.
I love it. Well, obviously your journey has been quite a journey, right? But I've been curious, like, how has the evolution of you as an artist and as an individual came? Because you went from, like, obviously going into Jane's Addiction, like that's a huge part to go in and play and be a good part of contributing into that stage. But you go from, you're sharing a stage with Steel Panther, right? Like, oh my god, those guys! Oh my gosh, I love those guys.
The band and the crew, like the whole family, they're just top notch. You can see why they've been doing it so successfully for as long as they have.
I remember whenever I first saw them live, and I've never heard of them, and it was in between sets of like two bands that one I really wanted to see. It was them, and then one I really, really wanted to see. And I'm already in the pit, and I'm like at the rail, so I'm like, I'm not moving. So I'm like, let's see what these guys are about. And they came on. I'm like, what in the 1980s is happening here? Like, I loved it.
And they sell it. They kill
everything it. Is in like they really embody that characteristic of the band and like their characters that they play, if you will, But yeah. So anyways, going from like experiences like that to now, which we'll talk about again here in a little bit, you have a tour coming up with Drowning Pool. Like, how has your evolution as an artist been? Because like that, bro, like that's a lot. That's a lot of things happening. And like you said, a lot of opportunities, but also you've obviously delivered and now you're getting more opportunities. But how do you see yourself evolving through those musical experiences and opportunities?
If I think I'm hearing your question right, to me, like the just seeing like where we started and just where we're going and what we're doing, it's crazy to me because I saw Drowning Pool at our local radio festival when my dad's band was playing, and my dad's band was an opener, and Drowning Pool played, and everybody's heard Bodies, dude. Come on.
Yeah.
Everybody
my mom knows that song, and she's not a metalhead.
You take that to Madagascar. They know that. So it can be the smallest pocket of the world. People know that song. So
correct.
When I saw them come out, I was just, it was electrifying because I'm like, I've heard the song a million times. Here I am seeing the guys, and I'm a young kid too. I was probably 11 at that time. So I'm just watching these guys like, whoa, and seeing the singer Ryan McCombs. Now, he hops off stage, he goes into the crowd shit. I'm a kid, and I'm just like, oh my God, that's so cool. So I told him that we got to play a pocket of shows with them, I think sometime last year. We played like 5 shows. It was just a quick little run. But I told him that. I was like, I'm really sorry to age you, dude, but this is really cool for me because I watched you as a kid, and it's just cool to be able to share the stage with them. So yeah, guys like that, and then guys like Steel Panther, you know what I mean? It's like both bands just really great dudes, and that in itself is really cool. Like when you see these bands that are so successful, you kind of expect to be stiffed by them because we're nobodies, you know what I mean? Nobody's ever heard of us, and we're just coming on, and we're just happy to have the opportunity. So for them to even like treat us with a little bit of respect feels so good, and it's just all right. I think this is gonna work out. This is cool. So yeah, those vibes matter for sure, and it's been really awesome to have these opportunities.
Yeah, it's interesting though too because like I've heard a lot of other artists talk about that too. It's like, hey, I remember that one band that helped us just kind of like feel comfortable or like get the ropes of the road and things like this. And it's surprising because to me, usually those bands that make the biggest impact. I mean, obviously they're household names, people know who they are, right? But surprisingly, I'm like, man, those people can be complete a-holes if they wanted to. But instead, you know what I mean? Because there's a lot of ego, I would say, that could be seen in the music scene. But yeah, I think that's really cool and awesome. I love that.
You know, it's funny, just a quick story about that too. Just this last Steel Panther tour we were on, I was actually talking to Michael, the singer, Michael Starr, and we were walking back to our green room. I think it was after our set, and we're walking up the stairs, and I was just basically like, hey, I just want to let you know, thank you guys for being so cool to us. You know, I was just like, I had to give him his flowers. It's like, it really means a lot to us little kids, basically, you know what I mean? And I was like, and I asked him, I was like, who's the band for you? Like, was there a band for you where you just couldn't believe they were so cool? You know what I mean? I had to ask, you know, I'm not just naturally who I am. I got to pry a little bit sometimes. And he told me the bands that weren't, which I won't name, but
yeah, of course.
And it was. And for them, that was Def Leppard.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's like, dude, they were just the nicest guys and totally took us under their way. I'm just like, that's so cool. And so, yeah, I mean, that is obviously like that happened to them. They making a point to do it to younger artists like us who are up and coming. And so it's a beautiful thing, you know.
It's like the circle of life or something.
Totally, yeah.
I love it. Yeah, I was thinking too, because one of the artists that's kind of sticking out to me was Jeremy Spencer. I interviewed him a handful of times, but one time, man, it might have been the first or second time, I can't remember, he was on the show, was whenever he was with Five Finger Death Punch, and his band was Disturbed. He said like those guys were like the nicest, like most awesome guys, like that, like, you know.
Oh, I hear, yeah, I've heard that.
And you know, a lot of people from the public perspective, they would be like, oh, those guys have to be like assholes, but then you hear that they're not. So, and Def Leppard, that's a shocker to me because, again, not that I've never been personally rude from them or anything, but you know, just saying like you would never think that, but that's awesome. It's cool. I love it.
Was cool. It was nice getting that little secret bit of information.
Yeah.
Michael, sorry.
So you guys have had a busy summer, and the crazy thing is what we're just now halfway through June. So I feel like the summer's just begun. But with that being said, I know you guys are fresh off the stage of Welcome to Rockville, which I'm so sad we didn't get to do this interview in person. We didn't get to make a connection there, but here we are.
Yeah. Thanks. Give me a soda.
Correct. But, you know, fresh off the stage from Welcome to Rockville and Sonic Temple, can you share any of those experiences, like maybe some memorable moments from your recent performances there, and you know, if there's any long-lasting impacts of the band?
Yeah, I can share some. Yeah.
Let's
go. Yeah, I mean, both festivals were just amazing. Just as an up and coming artist to be able to play not only
some
one
huge stages,
two of the biggest festivals in America right now. You know what I mean? And it's just like I can see. I mean, that Danny Wimmer guy really knows how to throw on a festival.
Danny Wimmer, he knows the thing or two about festivals, right?
Well, I tell you, he's doing it right. I mean, yeah, you can see why he's such a big name. You know, you go to those festivals, and not only from a fan perspective, but from an artist perspective too. It just takes care of you. You know, I mean, again, I don't mean to be a broken record, but we're tiny guys right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So same thing from media side. You know, from being on media, like. They are amazing. I mean, obviously I've never had a bad experience with media and stuff, but I will say this every time, like Christine and all the fabulous people that do the media runs and run the show. Yeah. So anyway, sorry, continue. I just had
it's just
a little media person as well. I feel like.
Yeah, it's just amazing all across the board. You know, it's really cool. So yeah, the way that it's set up is cool, and then obviously playing both the festivals too was just absolutely amazing. what was it? Oh yeah, for Rockville. So I'm a huge Sepultura fan, Max Cavalera fan to be more specific.
Yeah.
I've grown up with all listening to all of his shit. So we roll in and we're sharing a dressing room with Soulfly, and I'm just like,
oh my.
I was like, what? I saw our name on our piece of paper next to their name.
You had to take a picture of it. I'm sure you took a picture of it, right?
Oh yeah.
100%.
I turned into a little kid. I try to keep myself as composed as possible because I'm not trying to get people out. But it's like that for me was a deep hit because it's not like they're the Rolling Stones, you know what I mean? But for me personally, like they are the
Rolling Stones, yeah.
So I was just like, yeah. So I got to meet the band. Max wasn't there yet. Papa Max wasn't there yet, but I got to meet his son Zion and the rest of the band, and just the nicest guys ever again, which is so cool. So yeah, so that was really cool. And then Sonic Temple again was just a total different world within itself. That was amazing as well. Got to see Slipknot for the first time, so that was really cool.
Yeah.
And I love seeing them too doing their throwback thing because that's the Slipknot that I remember. When I was in the red jumpsuits and Corey with the red mask and stuff. That was my
back in the days when we didn't know who they were, like who was underneath the mask. Like it was like,
oh yeah, right, yeah.
So before the internet was really a thing.
yeah. So that was very nostalgic. That was cool, and the show just popped off, dude. We had such a killer crowd, so it means a lot too when people come to see a band that they've never heard of or seen before, and show us that kind of support. It means a lot to us.
I mean, I was looking. I'm not gonna lie, as being a little bit of a nosy bitch, and I was looking. Obviously, I'm listening to your guys' music, but I was looking on Spotify. You guys have impressive numbers. So you keep saying like, "Oh, this little old band," but I want to say like,
I don't know, to be honest. I don't have Spotify. I'm an Apple person. Apple Music.
I mean, I have an Apple iPhone. Don't get twisted. I'm not a complete red flag. I have an iPhone, but
I really don't. I don't know what our numbers are. I don't look at that kind of stuff. Maybe I should. I don't know.
It was 6 figures a month of listeners, so
that's good. What does that compare to though? What's bad?
I mean, I don't think there's bad, but I mean, how do I say this? I mean, a number is a number, right? But to me, like, how do I say this in the most polite way possible? I just feel like, when you start seeing a huge number of monthly listeners and you see that obviously you guys are building a fan base. You guys are building people who are coming back and listen to you month after month, I guess is the best way of saying it. Sure. So, I mean, even if you guys had 4,000, I think to me, I'm like, fuck, that's bigger than my small hometown that I grew up in. So like, that's a lot. That's more than like my small town America. Sure. But
glass half full, not glass half empty. I dig it.
Correct. I'm just saying, like, it was impressive. So
thank you. I appreciate it.
My foot in my mouth because,
and I'm really not trying to be a dick. I don't look at the numbers at all. I swear to God.
Good,
so I'm just like, that's good. I believe you.
So, question for you, for people listening in who haven't caught you guys live just yet on stage, what can fans expect from Moon Fever's live shows? And, how do you guys kind of ensure that each time you're on stage is an unforgettable one?
I think what you kind of said earlier in the podcast or in the show, which I really want to make it a point on, is that nothing's choreographed. We don't go out there like, okay, and we're gonna do this spin move at halftime and this. There's none of that shit going on. We go out there and I guess the best way to put it is like I know that we want to keep it as fucking rock and roll as possible. Yeah. That to me is the thing, because I'm sick of. I want to be unapologetic about it, and not in a way of being a dick, but it's just like we're missing that attitude in rock and roll. You know what I mean? That old school. You don't really give a fuck. You're here to have a good time, here to give a goddamn show. You know what I mean? And if it means I'm going to bleed for you, then goddamn it, I'm going to bleed for you. And we're all going
to have throat surgery after this. I'm going to have throat surgery.
Totally, dude. And it's just like crowd surfing is my thing. I love the crowd. I love being with the crowd because I remember when I was younger, my dad took me to Motorhead shows and such cool stuff. And I remember being behind the cage as a young kid. And so like when I see kids at our shows, I definitely make a point to go to them too. Cause I'm like, what I'm telling them without telling them is I'm like, you're the next generation and this shit's still cool. Don't get it twisted, dude. This shit is still cool. And that's the other thing too, is like, rock and roll is coming back and very huge, but there's this new wave of new bands coming in that are just absolutely undeniable. So it's cool. It's cool, man. It's a curve that we're hitting and we're on a good swing. But I guess to go back to your original question, yeah, we hit the stage and we come and kick teeth in a polite way, of course.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, 100%. Like I love that. That's 1,000%. I love it. So, that kind of leads me to like my next question for you is, as you guys are preparing for your tour coming up in July with Drowning Pool, how do you maintain that energy city after city? Because I mean, like for me, like I will go to a music festival and I feel like I need a week of like decompression from it as a media perspective. I could imagine like, you're performing night after night, that high energy. How do you guys keep that and maintain that?
You don't. You don't. You hit the stage and just it's a classic like adrenaline. You know what I mean? That adrenaline hits you the second, and I mean the second that I just take those steps up on a stage, it's just blackout, and something else takes over. I'm not there anymore, and I'm no longer
It's the
Triston. I'm
best.
something
I love
else.
it.
And that's the thing that keeps you riding. And again, that means like you have to really love it for it to do something like that to you. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't matter stage is big or small, dude. I'm blacking out before I hit the stage every time because it's my passion and it's what I live for. And that adrenaline of just that dream that I had when I was a little boy, like I'm living that every night, and that does get my kicks going. You know what I mean? So and I know it's the same for everybody else in the band. Like you hit the stage, you're with the boys, dude. All else fails, dude. Fucking rock and roll.
I love it.
So it's
I love
cool.
it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, you guys also have, speaking of music, you guys also have an album in the works. Is that correct?
Yeah, we do.
Let's
Finally, I know all of our fans are just like, when do you put an album out? I'm like, I want to give you an answer, and I still can't give you an answer, but I will say it's soon. That's what we've been talking about. We really want to get our shit onto vinyl, so we're in the middle of writing songs right now. We have demos in the pile. We want to go down and get them recorded. So we have new shit writing. We're rounding it out. Just please, you guys, hold on. It's coming.
So I love that you teed it up with a nice little teaser because this is teaser talk. So you're kind of
We're
keeping us on the edge with a new album coming up. So I love to hear that. And I'm curious though too, because how do you guys navigate the balance between being in studio recordings and then also live performances to ensure your music translates, from seamlessly across platforms of being in the studio versus being in person?
What was that question?
The question is, obviously working on the album, you guys are going to be in the studio recording,
Right.
obviously, right? So how do you navigate between being in the studio and recording and encapsulating that song, and then also with live performances to ensure that that music translates from studio to on the stage?
Gotcha. Totally understand. Sorry. Sometimes you have to write things in
And
crayon.
sometimes I ramble and you're like, what did you just say?
No, all good. No, I mean, I don't know. I wish I had a full answer for you because I think that's what every band tries to do, right? Like
Yeah.
you're trying to capture that energy and make it all like, when you hear this is what to expect when you come out and you see this band. I don't know. I think we're still figuring that out, to be honest, too. You know what I mean? And when we go in for this next round of recording, that's something that's been in the talks. That's actually so funny that you asked that question. That's something that we've really been talking about. Is just like, how do we capture that energy that we have fully? You know what I mean? Not to say the recordings we have aren't amazing, because I do love those mixes. The way they're recorded were awesome, and that was our first time as a band recording. Now that we're going to be going in at a second time, it's like, okay, what are those things that we want to button down on, and how do we want to be able to represent ourselves perfectly? So that's something that we're still figuring out, honestly, too. And I think that's like the name of the game for every band is like, how do we record ourselves in a way that people are going to be like, oh yeah, we feel that from you,
Yeah, because like I know for me, like there's bands that like I'll fall in love with them on, streaming, obviously, I guess now you could say. But like listening to them and then seeing them in person, you're like, is this really happening? This is all you know what I mean? So like, but there's also been some bands too that I've seen. I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
That's not what I expected. So that's
Yeah.
awesome. You guys have that, like, I guess you'd say that self-awareness of it,
Yeah, because I cannot lie. We've had some fans come up to us and we're like, we listen to you guys on the radio, or we listen to some of your guys on stuff on Spotify, and we love what we heard, but when we came and we saw you, we did not expect that, and it was in a good way. Thank
Oh, okay,
God.
it's a compliment, though, right?
Yeah, it was a compliment. They're like, you guys are, and I guess what they were saying is that I think it's because of our stage presence. We we have a different show when we're on stage, and I think, and that's something that we're trying to capture in our recordings, going forward too, for sure. So yeah.
And I'm curious though too, because with you guys being in the studio, obviously having that awareness of, okay, how do we encapsulate this down and also perform it live on stages? But music is always evolving. I feel like bands are always evolving. Not saying that you guys are going to change to mainstream or anything like that, but I feel like bands do progress through their sound. But how do you kind of stay true to Moon Fever's like roots, if you will, while pushing boundaries and experimenting with other sounds?
I guess that's the thing, is like, what are your roots? You know what I mean? Like, if you're a band, then it's just like whatever you write under that band, if that's what you're feeling, that's what you are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think a great example of that is Faith No More, one of my favorite bands in the world. Each one of those players came from a completely different background, and they wrote all kinds of shit. It was all over the board. But when you heard it, you're like, that's Faith No More. Every time you're like, nah, you hear that, and it could have been something with the recording or the mixing or that key sound from the guitar player or whatever. But every time you hear it, you're like, that's Faith No More. I know that sound. You know what I mean? But their stuff was just all over the place. And I think that is an example of just being a great artist. You know what I mean? If you can pull it off in every aspect. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's like whatever you're feeling at the time. I mean, that is what you are. Whether or not the fans want to accept that, I think is a different story, and it might just be their personal taste. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, you're so spot on. It is just a good artist. So yeah, I agree with that. So I know we are definitely past our 20 minutes, and this conversation is so fun and awesome. But I did promise you before we hit record that I wasn't going to keep you all day long hanging out on our virtual studio. So with that being said, I'm curious, what does the rest of 2024 look like for you and the band? And are there any shows or new music that we didn't talk about on this episode that you can kind of tease us with as a last note?
Secrets. They're all secrets. I will say this, the rest of our 2024 is looking sick. So I hope that you guys keep your eyes on us, because we have some I hate to be that. I was like, big things coming soon, but
coming soon 2 years later. Like, whatever happened to them?
Oh yeah, right. So yeah, 2024 is looking out, but it's all secrets right now. So
I love it. Triston, thank you so much for being on today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And everyone listening in, make sure to go into the details of today's episode, wherever you're listening to it, whether it be YouTube, whether it be my preferred method, Spotify, or Triston's preferred method, which is Apple, wherever the case you are listening to it. You guys hop in there and you'll be able to see the hyperlinks to click and follow, so that you can just be like me and fly on the wall and waiting for these secrets to be spilled. But yeah, again, Triston, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Holly.
You guys, until next week, keep rocking. Perfect.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Teaser Talk. Head over to teasertalk.com to subscribe so you don't miss out on another episode. Until next week, keep rocking.